Hello, everybody. Welcome. Um, it's an absolutely gorgeous day today. I'm here with, hang on, let's get this right, that way, the lovely Jason Rothwell, who some of you might have seen at when we did the service for Pastures Green. This is just one of those chat withs that I do. It's going to be quite loose. I've got a few little questions that Jason's already seen. But please, if you've got anything you want to ask, drop it into comments. We'll pick up and answer as many as we can during the time we've got together. I will ask Jason to just do a quick opening prayer, just to set the intention for the hour or so we're going to be spending together, if that's okay.
Yeah. Happy days.
Good.
I call to gracious and divine spirit, you who are the essence of the eternal circle, the hoop of life, the union of humanity. I ask that you allow myself and my friend to converse with you, that we may bring wisdom from the higher places and from deep within ourselves. I ask here now in the bond of friendship that healing will be spread out across creation. This I ask in the name of the one true now and forever God, he who is eternal life and everlasting love. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that. That was lovely. That was really nice. Really nice prayer.
Good morning to everybody.
Yes, good morning, Leander, Paul, everybody who's watching. Thank you for spending this time with us when you could be doing so many other things, like sitting in the garden and getting a nice tan.
Drinking gin before dinner time.
Yes, being reckless as we can be. Just what would you like people who don't know you, who are watching, to know about Jason Rothwell?
You know, when you sent me those questions this morning, and I did actually skim back through them, I think I realised that is the hardest question for me to answer. And I think the only way to answer it is to sort of stick to the rudiments. My name is Jason. My name means to heal. That has been the story of my life. My mum is Lynn. My dad is Robert. We come from a small working class town in the middle of Rochdale. And we have been spiritualists within both branches of my family for the better part of 500 years. If you go on the records, you can find my great-grandmother being arrested for witchcraft. I know, but she was arrested at 40-something and she died at 113.
Oh, wow.
In 1700 and odd. Exactly. So something was going on there, weren't there? I have 5 cats, 2 dogs. My other half is called Theodore, so I am Jason in love with Faith.
Wow.
That is it. Any more question than that, then I don't know. It was the hardest question I had to read, I think. I was baffled by it because I was like, I don't honestly know anymore what Jason is.
It's just a bit of an introspection, really, isn't it? It's like, what is it about me that people would find interesting, you know?
Well, yeah, because I've got very much over the last few years sort of the things I used to think people would find interesting. I just think it's all just stuff that happened, isn't it?
Yeah.
It used to be interesting to me, but now it's no longer interesting at all. And I'm very open about myself. So I talk quite freely about things that have happened in my life. And yeah.
I've found that a lot since I started this spiritual journey, really, that as part of giving comfort and giving of myself in demonstrations and things, you become very open about your own life. And things don't bother me. Talking about things like being a gay man, being a spiritualist, medium, doesn't bother me anymore. You know, I'm quite open. If I find that if people have an issue, it's their problem and not mine. Where I used to take ownership of these things before, and I don't anymore.
You know, I don't know if you've heard of Marsha P. Johnson, who is a gay civil rights activist in America. And the P in her name, she added herself. It means pay it no mind.
Oh, wow.
And it seems to have become one of the defining words recently of my sort of... I talk so much about my life that I found a lot of what bothered me, what made me angry, what made me sad. Now they're just memories that I use to give comfort to people. Why can I see this particular memory? You know, and it might not be a good memory, but it's there to create the healing for the person who is working with me at that moment in time.
Yeah, exactly.
And the rest of, if anybody has an issue with anything that I say or that has gone on, I am very much just pay it no mind. It's not really significant anymore, you know. And family members, we've had conversations about things that have gone on, and because of that, I can sit with the strangest of people and just go, it's none of my concern. That. Did I tell you about giving a reading to a murderer?
No.
Yeah, I gave a reading to a murderer, and he, I said that the man who you killed, his family have never had his body back, and they were like, and they never will. And he said, "Do you think bad of me?" And I was like, "I have no opinion on this subject at all. My job is to the person stood behind me speaking to me at the moment, and not to you and how you feel." And he was like, "But you've just basically told me I've committed murder." I was like, "And you admitted to it. I didn't kill anybody."
Yeah.
All right.
And part of, I mean, I am a Christian spiritualist, and part of that is forgiving the sinner, but not the sin. You know.
Yes.
So it's for you, not you personally, but it was for him to stand judgment for his actions, not for you to judge him.
Yeah, that was exactly it. I mean, and there was a particular family incident that I won't overly go into, but I dealt with that family member, and everybody was like, "What? How are you okay with that?" I was like, "Oh, do not misunderstand me being okay with it and me dealing with it." You know, and I was like, it's not for me to stand in judgment of this person. It's for me to love this person and do what I can and to serve my family. But yeah, so that question is the most awkward question in the world, because I also find while spirit picks us, I think, for our characters and what we can bring to the table, I think the more you work with them, the more you sort of find that you look at yourself in a sort of, you look at yourself a little bit a step back from yourself sometimes.
Yeah.
Like,
I understand what you mean.
If you're going to go to react, somebody else sort of says to you, like, "Why are you going to react like that?" And you go, "Well, all right, I get it." You know, you want to scream at somebody, and some little old lady's whispering in your ear going, "Is this really a good plan?" And you're like,
yeah, you might want to rethink that, you know.
Yeah. And so you look at things, and when things upset you, I think sometimes you sort of ask yourself, and I've got a lot, you know, I know it's very early, but I've got a lot of sad memories, but they don't make me sad anymore. Now I just sort of push into them and be like, what did I learn there or what have I not learned yet from that?
Exactly. Everything's a learning experience, isn't it? It's you learn from that event. And then I find as a medium, as a spiritual person, you can parcel that up and say, that was part of what I had to go through to be who I am now. Yeah. Oh, Paul, that's an interesting one. We've just had a question from Paul Smith.
There is an answer to that question, and I can answer it, but
I think that comes down to I've forgotten. This is dreadful. I've forgotten the name of the young gentleman we talked. Keith Bennett. It's about what he perceives will be the benefit of that for his family. It's what purpose would finding that body now serve. And it, I find a lot of things, like it's one of my mantras actually. Spirit will give us what we need, not necessarily what we want. In terms of the boy's family, would it have just made things worse for them finding the body? Or I know I can see where people would say, but they would have had closure and they would have, you know, it would have maybe give them some healing. But it's not a controversial question, Paul, at all. It's just a question, and it's that for me is the answer. It is spirit would look at the whole situation and think, what are the benefits of this? And for some reason, they and their infinite wisdom thought best not. Well, I don't know.
Over the course of my time as being a spiritualist or a medium, I have been involved in that situation, a situation like that 4 times. The first time was to a young boy who died in a river in Preston. And his family contacted me. And I mean, I won't give his name because it's not polite. And
No.
Me and his family are very, very good friends now. And we did manage to find his body very clearly. They contacted me 2 days later. This body was found and it was on its way to a mortuary, and, you know, his family have him back. That happened purely because the spirit of that boy wanted to come back. I mean, yeah. I was like, it's impossible. What you've asked me is impossible. And I walked past a mirror and there was someone stood in the mirror. And I was like, oh, you look very wet. And I phoned them back and we had this conversation, and then he told me how it would happen. 2 of the other times, a lady came to speak with me, and I told her son would be back within the month. And she said, will he be back alive or dead? And I'm like, well, he unfortunately has passed to the world of spirit, but he will be back. And she said, well, can you tell me where he is? And I said, no, because if you interfere with what is happening, he won't come back. You know, things are in motion upstairs to make this arrive when it needs to do. And the same with the other one, the lady who I spoke to, she's from St. Helens. Me and my mum helped in that particular one, and we found him, and he was found where he'd said, and he is now at rest. The 4th one, it is impossible. I have no idea why, but the 4th person I was asked to look for, we found a place, and when we went to this place, it was impossible to reach a body in that place. It was just like, whoever put that there, put it there to make sure you could never find it. And if you did find it, you'd need to be talking to the person to find it, which conveniently, you know, mediums are able to do. But it was down a 200-foot well shaft that goes down into a mine. And we sort of stood there like, if you went down there, you're never coming back. But it can be done. But the question is whether the world of spirit wants it to be done, and what is the benefit. Like to the young boy who couldn't be found, I don't think it would really have served any purpose anyway.
No.
Apart from and this sounds awful, but apart from to cause trouble, the trouble that would have been caused by that boy's finding would have just been not worth it. Yeah. It was involved in a gangland killing.
Oh, bless.
And it was kind of like, anyone who finds out a young man is going to get shot.
Yeah. Oh, bless. Okay, just to move on a little bit. School life. I always find it interesting talking to spiritual mediums about their school life, because I don't know about you, but mine was quite not traumatic, but difficult. I had a difficult school life, so I was just wondering what yours was.
Yeah. I got on with my teachers very well. I find quite naturally that mediums are usually quite well schooled. Like, I think we're quite clever, not to blow our own trumpets, but I think we're relatively quite clever people.
Yeah.
And I think we always find fascination in things. So I was always fascinated to learn everything. I loved learning history. As for friends and what have you, being a gay man in the 1990s and the very early part of 2000 was possibly a lot better for me than it may have been like when yourself and Michael went to school. But it was still not very nice. It was still quite hard. Like, you get that awful thing, don't you, where if you make friends with girls, it's because they want a gay best friend, and every man in every class seems to think that the only reason you want to talk to him is because you want to sleep with him.
Yeah.
You think, have you looked in a mirror this morning?
Yeah. Do you know me?
Yeah. I have taste, love.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of bullying, and a lot of that sort of kept to myself and away from my family because I didn't want them to think that I wasn't okay, you know.
Oh.
Yeah, school life was a funny one, and because I don't know about yourself, but I found in school, apart from wanting to learn and getting on really well with my teachers, and I got on better with my teachers than I did my own class. Like, I talked to them in a better way. Was that the gay question was the question of the time. Like, it was the only question anybody ever wanted to know. So when you say at the beginning of this, you know, like, what's important about Jason, or what do I want people to know? At school, it was the only thing people wanted to know.
Yeah.
Which
I had that a lot.
I didn't even know what that was yet. You know.
Yeah.
It was strange.
I was trying to figure it out myself, and people were like, "But you're gay," and I'm like, "I don't know that." But there we are.
Is that a thing? I don't know. You know, I remember like seeing a Westlife calendar back when Westlife were young, thinking, "Oh, they're a bit of all right," but I didn't understand what that was or what it meant. And when everybody else is asking you to answer a question that you didn't even know was a question, it's quite complicated, isn't it?
It is. Paul, that wasn't very nice. Not good singers, though, from what I heard last night, Tony. I did a dem last night on StreamYard, and they ended up making me sing. And it's not good. It's not good, Jason.
No, mine's not pleasant.
No.
I sound like Vera Lynn.
I don't even sound that good. I sound more like Gracie Fields. So if you had a TARDIS and you could go back, what advice would you give to the 12-year-old Jason?
I've thought about this question quite a lot, and it makes me quite emotional. I think the very simple answer is none. I would not tell him anything.
Wouldn't you?
I often look at a picture of myself and I ask myself that question, what would I do if I could go back and stop him? And it makes me quite emotional because when you say, for example, you pick 12, I know what will happen at 13, which is my auntie will die. And then at 14, my grandfather will die. Over the course of those next sort of 8 years, the person that was that Jason is about to go through an awful time. And I really wouldn't want to spoil it for him.
Oh, bless.
It was just like, you know, it's going to be great.
That goes back to what we said earlier about it's those things that sort of join the dots, if you like, and make us who we are now. So you've got to go through it, even though it's not good. Yeah. It shapes you and it gives you the tools to move forward.
I think the only thing I would do is I would go to him at 12. I even know exactly when I would go to him. I would go to him in November the year of me turning 12, and I would say to him, just be brave. Keep going. Be brave. This is not going to be easy. But I would say to him, on the opposite side of that, you will fall in love, you will have a home, and you will be given one of the greatest gifts that any person can have. And that should be all right. No matter what comes in the middle, just head for that goal and you'll be all right.
Keep that in sight and you'll be fine.
And without being overly romantic, I would say to them, there is a person called Theodore at the end, and his name means faith. Have faith in the person at the end, and you'll get there. Because everything else was just like a don't rain on my parade. It was awful.
Yeah.
It's just like, you think it's bad now, and it gets worse the next year.
Oh, bless you. Bless you. So how did you realise you were able to communicate with those that have gone before?
I think because I've been very, 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 very lucky. My mum was always very open to spirit. My great-grandma was a spiritualist. My nana, who is like the biggest influence on me, was massively into spirits and ghosts and things like that. So it was never, ever, ever put on me the horrible word imagination. Like my mum said that there was a little babe. There was a story where my auntie, she lost her son. He died of cot death. And my mum made it quite plain and made no secrets about the fact that she spoke with that little boy in the morning. The morning that he died, she said there was a bright blue light in the living room or on the edge of the kitchen door. And he said that it was him, and that he said, I'm going, Auntie Lynn, I need you to look after my mum. And
oh, bless.
So, and then there was talk of, I know this sounds balmy, but my mum always talked about the leprechauns in the bedroom on the street she used to live.
Oh, wow.
So, and I mean, my mum's not a nutter, it's very strange because my mum sort of abandoned the idea of spirits when her sister died. It just was like, no, there's no such thing. But it's very lucky. So we used to play games with people like, I can tell you what's in your pocket. And they'd be like, how can you do that? I'm like, I just know you've got a blue stone in your left pocket. And they're like, shut up. And I was like, I even knew who gave it you. And so we just had it as a game. It was just, spirit was up. And me and my mum used to play a game. We used to put our hands together, and she used to say to me, tell me what I'm thinking. And which is basically a very basic psychic gift, to each other's energies. And we used to, And eventually people started talking. I mean, the final part of moving from being Jason to being a spiritual medium was a little bit rocky because I started getting this very weird lady appear in my mind, and she kept sort of pushing me. And I ended up going to the psychiatrist, and I was like, I'm going balmy. I'm going mad. Yeah. I need drugs, lots and lots of hardcore drugs. And he was like, do you think you have a drink problem? I'm like, right now, I think I do have a massive drink problem. And he was like, and what would you say about that problem? I was like, I don't drink enough to make this lady be quiet.
Oh, gosh.
And then I went to see a healer, and I just burst out crying. And suddenly the lady became much clearer when I could see her, and I decided to go to a spiritualist church. But you say when did I first? And I don't think I've ever not, because it was never been a thing to not believe that there were spirits in the room.
Yeah. They've always been around.
The man through the window and stuff. Like when you laid in bed and there's like, oh my God, there's someone sat there, and you're like 6. Like,
yeah.
What do you do with that?
Yeah.
See?
Oh, interesting one from Su Zhao. Do you believe in reincarnation? That's a huge question, actually. Well,
do you want to go first?
Well, I sort of think that we are here to learn and have a human experience and to learn what it is to be human. And when we have learned what we need to in this life and you move into the world of spirit, you still have things to learn. And I think sometimes the only way certain people can learn more is to maybe have another physical experience. So I think it is possible for a spirit to be reborn and have another earthly existence. But that's just an opinion, because I've never actually spoken to anybody who from spirit who has had more than one earthly experience. But I do know people do have past life regressions and things. So like I said, it's just an informed guess from me, really. Over to Jason.
When I was at university, I read the Egyptian Book of Life, and it says that the soul is split into 7 pieces. One of these pieces is your spirit, your personal self, and one of them is your divine self. And in terms of reincarnation, I believe that, and only I believe, in my opinion, because like Tony, until I die and get reincarnated, I don't
exactly
know. I have no idea. But in my opinion, there will always be in spirit a person who has your name. You will always be you. And when you yourself die, you will die and you will stay in spirit forever. But I believe a piece of your soul goes back to a sort of a collective, like a beehive. Your spirit is part of a beehive. And when you go back, what you then do is your soul reincarnates as another life. But I think you walk through those lives together. I think, when you say, oh, I've been here before, or you see something that really sparks an emotional response. I mean, some people say you can tell what incarnations you've had by sort of like weird ornaments and objects in your house. Like you ask yourself, why is that there? You know, when you have no reason to be interested in it. Like you just pick up a statue or an ornament and you think, oh, I really like that. And then you put it in your house and it's like, it goes with absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it's just random.
Yeah, and someone's like, why did you buy that? And you're like, I don't know, it just spoke to me. And somebody said to me, that is when somebody from the lives you have lived before as part of your soul group or your soul stream has inflected upon you and said, oh, go on, I used to have one of those. And you buy it, and it's their way of pushing yourself through. And it's bizarre because I've not thought about it like that, but if I challenge everybody who is watching this, if you sit in your house, unless you're like a really like minimalist, you'll struggle with this. If you do sort of have ornaments and stuff, just look around what fits into a common genre and then look at how many different genres there are overlaying each other. So you have like Japanese things, African things, Egyptian things, etc. And then ask yourself why you got them in the first place and where your interest in it actually comes from. And you'll find usually it doesn't come from anywhere. You just suddenly like, oh, I really like that, So there'll always be you, but you will come back, but you will always be you, even if you have a different face and a totally different personality. And you'll still be dead even though you'll be alive at the same time, in my opinion. It's a very weird one.
Schrodinger's cat.
Yes, it is. It's very much you are dead, you are alive, but you are not alive. You are not dead either. It's like
exactly. Stacey's follow-up is deja vu then maybe a past life memory? It could be, Stacey, but what I found sometimes is if I go to somewhere and I think, I know this place and I know that, and I've never been here before in my life, sometimes I find it's spirit connecting with me, and it's their recognition I've got rather than my own, if that makes sense. It's like them saying, oh yeah, if you go down here and turn left, you'll find a lovely little sweet shop, which has happened to me before. So I think it's a combination. I think it's a combination, deja vu.
The only thing I can take in my understanding of deja vu, and I mean, a weird thing about deja vu, and just say this before I tell you, my understanding is scientists cannot find out why it happens. Like, they have no idea what causes it. And yet every human on Earth experiences it. I personally think deja vu is when you cross a sort of blip in time, and it triggers a crossover where you would, because in my opinion, and it's only in my opinion, there are thousands of worlds, all the exact same world, and you were doing the exact same thing, but some are in the future and some are in the past. Some are a few hours into the future, some a few hours back, some of them dozens of years. And I think sometimes when you have deja vu, it's when those worlds pass through each other. And you go, you know, I've done this before. And it's like, yes, you have. You literally have. It's just two worlds have just hit each other at a similar moment in time. And
fabulous.
It might be if you, I mean, because don't you ever, have you ever read it where you've noticed you've got deja vu and you know the ending wasn't good and you kind of think, at what point did this situation go bad?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you think, I know somebody's about to break. Yeah. I know I'm about to have a domestic. I can see the domestic coming. I've seen this memory before. How do we stop the? And then they come in screaming, and you're like, no. Obviously, there's no way to change it. Yeah, off we go. And that's mine. I think it's just a loop in time.
Fabulous. I like that as well. We can sort of skip number 5 because you've already talked about the effect your abilities have had on you.
Oh, what's number 5?
What effect does communicating with spirit have on you? You can talk about it if you want.
I think the very simple thing about that is it makes me feel better. Sometimes it makes me feel bloody awful, but we shouldn't say bloody. But
you can say it's not a service.
Yeah, sometimes it's not pleasant at all, but the more often than not, it's like a lovely little drug, isn't it? Just a sort of drip feed of diamorphine.
I felt a little bit bad last night because there was myself, Jean, and Irene doing an online service, and this lovely young man was coming through to Irene, and I could sense him as well, and he had a lot he wanted to say, but we couldn't actually find anybody to take the information. Now, whether it was because they didn't want to put something in the comments, and that made me feel bad because I thought we've not done him justice. We've not made that link for him, but I know it will come and we will find him and we will find the recipient for his message. But that made me feel bad.
Well, I mean, I do like those messages, you know, where you think, I love the messages or the readings where at the end of the reading you say to somebody, is there anything more you want to ask? And they just go, no, I think you've literally covered everything I needed. And you're like, lovely, fabulous. Yeah. Do you feel like you have sat here and talked to your mum for half an hour or an hour or whatever? And they're like, yeah, I really enjoyed that. And you're just like, beautiful, done it. And then there are other times where, you know, you're like, where you really are sorry for the stuff that you've got to talk about, you know.
Yeah.
It's particularly like where there's been a troubled childhood or there's been a difficult passing, and the person, you know, I had one the other week where the lady had sort of hung on longer than she should have done, and she was coming back to her daughter to be like, I'm so sorry I put you through that. And her daughter was like, it's not her fault. It's like your mum believes it is. You know, your mum is really upset that she upset you. But that's always nice. The only time it does affect you, like I think, really badly on something different to the emotional. Have you ever had it where clairsentience like goes AWOL, and you're like, I'm dying, I'm actually dying, and I woke up yesterday and I said to Theo, I was like, I've had a stroke, and he was like, you what? I was like, I can't move my arm. And he was like, you're joking? I'm like, no, I've genuinely had a stroke. And then I was like, just sort of put my hand over it. And I'm like, oh, no, it's an old lady. It's an old lady.
Yeah.
And as we got closer and closer to the meeting, it was getting worse and worse. And then I was like, And I was literally sat there waiting for this reading. I phoned the lady. I was like, can we do this now? And she was like, oh, it's not till 2 o'clock. I'm like, your mother is going to kill me if I don't give this reading now. And I was in agony. And it was just clairsentience was going too strong. And I was just like, I don't understand this. But when I spoke to her, it turned out her mum was in such pain at the time of passing that she was screaming. And
bless her.
But that was what she was trying to. And I said to her, God, it's killing. And the lady in spirit said, you think it hurts you? Imagine what I did. And I was like, yeah, fair point. You know.
Yeah. If it's this bad for me, it must have been dreadful.
Yeah, I've got a pain. Go on.
On the reverse of that, I ended up in hospital a few years ago. I got blood clots in my lungs, and they really stepped away from me. And I felt like I'd lost a limb because there was no communication, no connection at all. No. And it's really awful. It's like you've gone blind or something, and it's really bad because you're that used to not just having your voice in your head.
Yeah, no, I do get that. It's a very queer experience when they sort of step away, and especially at a time when you really could do with them.
Yeah.
Really need some help right now. Is there anybody there? And you see the sort of, the spiritual, what's that thing called?
Tumbleweed.
And you just think, the office is closed. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
And
all I got was, this is for your own good. You need to heal. And I was like, yeah, but I could do with some support. But there we go.
Yeah.
So going on from that, it sounds like it's just been sort of a natural progression for you in terms of developing the mediumship. It's just built as you've grown.
Well, yeah, because obviously, as I say, the basics were laid down by my grandma and by my mum. And I mean, I remember going to an open circle. I did a service and there was an open circle afterwards and nobody would get up, but my mum was in the audience. I tell you what, I've never wanted to throttle her more in my life. Because she wouldn't get up. And then when the service had ended, she just tapped this lady on the shoulder. She went, you don't know a bald man with a moustache called Stephen, do you? I'm sure he's your uncle. And she was like, oh, my Lord God, that is me Uncle Stephen. And she described him. And I went, what are you doing here? 30 years, mother, and you never mentioned this. And she was like, just because I don't doesn't mean I can't. And I was like, are you joking? I've just worked me socks off up there trying to get a Margaret to fit somewhere, and you've just painted a Picasso. I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And I could have done with that at the time, but yeah, and I mean, I've sat in circle and stuff with people, but I went to the first circle I went to, and I just couldn't be bothered. I listened to this man and I was like, you're an idiot. And it was nonsense. I sat for 3 weeks listening to this circle in this particular church. I won't say where it was for political purposes. But I was just like, what a load of tripe. And I was like, you couldn't give a message if you wanted to. Never mind, take this circle. I was like, that lady there can give a better message than you've given. And he was trying to teach people. And I was like, what's going on here? And so, and she'll tell you, this is so bizarre. The reason I am a platform medium now, and I know everybody says you must sit through circle after circle after circle. I honestly tell you, I haven't. I've sat in circles. I have never learned from a circle particularly. I've gone to a circle and I've learned something in it, but I've not done 10 years sitting in one and then 5 years wandering around with some old dear waiting to. It just was like, I can't be bothered with that. Seems like a lot of hard work for very little reward here. I was very blessed to go to a church that is no longer there now in St. Anne's, called Serendipity, which obviously means fortuitous happenstance.
Yeah.
I got up in open circle there, not realising the medium who was on owned her own church. I gave a message to her. I gave a message to a gentleman at the back. And then afterwards, she'd come to speak to me and she went, do you want to do a service? And then it's rolled. And now I've done exactly what I wanted to do, which is lovely. But I always just think how strange that it's all thanks to serendipity in two different ways.
Yeah.
It's just bizarre.
Yeah. So, do you remember the first message you were given from a medium?
Yeah, I do. I think I definitely do.
Is it something you'd like to share?
Well, I mean, I was trying to be political, to be honest. I was trying to think at the likelihood of one of two, which one would be most likely to ever watch this back. I mean, I did go to see a rather famous medium. I won't tell you the name. And I took my nana to see a medium. She'd always been fascinated. And then, as she got older, it just became difficult. And I took her to see this very famous one, who proceeded to come to me and say, young man, and I was 15 at the time. So I was like, oh, hello. And I'm on a night out with my grandma. So when she proceeded to tell me that I had to open up and let certain secrets out about myself, and that over the next few years I was going to find that my nana would be very accepting of certain situations in my life, I was pretty convinced that the lady was talking a load of tosh, and she just realised that I was a 15-year-old boy dressed very femininely on a night out with my gran. It's kind of like, I get what you're saying, lady, but I don't think it's coming from where you think it's coming from. I think it's coming from just this situation here. I mean, she went to my nana and she said, can you take your mother in spirit? I'm like, she's 80. You can be long-lived, but Jesus, her blooming mother must have been a dragon to live as long as that. But the first proper message I got, the first bona fide, guaranteed, couldn't fault it message I ever received was from Jenny Moore in Hayward Spiritualist Church, which is no longer there. Don't know if you've met Jenny. She's a lovely lady. You wouldn't mess with her, but she's a lovely lady. And she gave me a message about 4 weeks after my nana died. You're going to get a job on Saturday. I got a job on Saturday. You're going to meet this man. You're going to get 2 dogs. I met this man. I met him in the month, she said. I got the 2 dogs over the stretch of time. She said they'd come both together. I couldn't falter. And the connection to my nana was just, I can see us walking along a canal and you're swinging around this thing, which was something me and my nan used to do frequently. And I wouldn't have believed it. I mean, I know it sounds awful, this, as a medium myself, but I thought then, and I still think to a lesser degree now, that a substantial part of mediumship is a load of tosh. I shouldn't really admit that, but I did. I totally believed in spirits. I went to Spiritualist Church and watched a number of mediums and just thought, this is nonsense. Until that lady gave me that message, and then I was like, right, yeah, got it. Yeah. No way on earth. Because she told me the night my nana died, everybody went to the church. It was about 11:45, everybody went to church. And at the front door, someone said, who's looking after Nana? Bearing in mind now she's a corpse and she's laid under a blanket in the front room. And I was like, guess I'll stay. And I took the blanket off and I made her a brew. And I sat there, I didn't bother putting it in her hands or anything. I just presumed she'd understand the sentiment was there.
Yeah.
And we had a lovely chat. I told her some stuff about what I felt about her and opened up and promised her a few things. And Jenny Moore told me what we'd said. Jenny Moore was like, this is the conversation you had with your grandmother when nobody was watching. And I was like, can't argue with that. You had words, you repeated words that only one living person on earth knows.
Yeah.
And that just, I nearly died.
Yeah.
I will say the main reason that I used to think it was tosh was because I used to go with my cousin, and my cousin is like gob on legs. So somebody would say, "Can I come to you, love? I've got a gentleman," and she'd be like, "Oh, it's my granddad," and I'm like, "Can we just wait to find out that it's granddad?" And then she tapped me, and then the medium would be like, "Oh, and you two are related." It's like you just told her it's our granddad, like.
Yeah.
And so I had a very hard time believing in mediums because my cousin just wouldn't shut up. Feeding the medium. Yeah, and she couldn't help herself. And it just, I may have seen 20 really good mediums, but my cousin just ruined it because I just couldn't believe him.
It's very hard, isn't it, when you're on platform and you've got somebody who's doing that and you keep saying to them, "Can you not? Because it's my job to tell you."
Yeah,
these things, not your job to tell me. Don't feed the medium. I've had my tea.
Well, I mean, it's all right if you get something like bizarre and you just think, "I'm never going to understand what this. I don't really want to understand." But if you feel the need to tell me, you can do, like because some people need to get it out there, don't they? And
they do.
But it just always, because I don't know, even though I believed in it, I'd watched a lot of Darren Brown. I'd been told a lot by like my dad and my stepfather that it was nonsense and they were con artists and I didn't believe that. But then when you take somebody who basically feeds that story. So the night I got the message off my nana from Jenny Moore, I went without my cousin. I was just like, "You're not coming." I didn't really like her anyway. It was just something that my mum and my uncle decided we had to do together for a bit of bonding. But it was just that Jenny, absolutely. I mean, not a thing she said has not happened. And I just, to give you words that only one living person on earth knew, and that was me, was just like, love it. Go for it.
So on the back of that, why do you think, or why do you feel that people are reaching out to spirit workers just now? Because I find doing these online services, there are so many people contacting me, more so now than ever before. And I've done these online services for years now, but I just feel at the minute there seems to be this reaching out to us. Just wondered if you had any thoughts.
I think it's quite a natural thing, really. I don't think it's an overly complicated one. I think when humans go into dark times, we reach out to a divine presence. I had a conversation with my mother many years ago, and my mum said she didn't believe in God, and I said, "One day you will." And she was like, "I won't." I'm like, "One day you will, because everybody does. One day you'll encounter a situation in your life where you will be out of control and there's nothing you can do, and you will turn to a higher being just on the off chance. It's worth a go. Excuse me."
Just in case.
I know I've not checked in with you very much, and I promise I will quit the fags and the booze if you can fulfill my little request. And I think obviously because we are in such a difficult time, I think a lot of people turn to religion or turn to spiritualism. And the second one, because I did answer this question on the way to the shop to myself. I actually think it's the 20th century, not to make this overcomplicated, the 20th century and the 19th century sort of thing, I think they've been a very bad social experiment about trying to remove religion and replace religion with ideology. Obviously, communism and fascism are the left and the right, which is what we're doing at the moment. And I don't think it works. I don't think human beings are programmed to be like that. I don't think we can do that. And I think our spiritual side of us has been with us the 800,000 years sort of thing since the first human-like being came into the world. And the 10,000 years that we have been like we are, we have buried our dead, we have worshipped our ancestors, we have, took joy in the sun and the moon, and have been a deeply spiritual people. And our music, our dancing, all of our sort of social rituals have a really strong spirituality in them. And over the last 200 years, they have tried to rip that out of us. And I don't think it's possible. And I think people are reaching out now because they are rejecting the idea that is right. And they go, because it's the hoop, isn't it? The hoop of the world is getting larger and larger and larger. And humans have finally realized that we belong to the hoop of everything. We are as much connected to the planet. And I'll shut up on this because this is part of my answer. I sat there the other day on the side of a stream watching two wrens with their children, and they were feeding them and making a nest, and back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I did kind of think, what makes their love for their chick any less than my mother and father's love for me? And I was like, who decided that was the case? That life there is less significant than my life, and what that does now may have more of an influence on the span of time than anything. And I think that's one reason why people are becoming so much more spiritual, is they realize that the hoop of the world is there, and you are connected to the plants and the earth, and also because our earth is in such a poor state at the moment. I think that creates something in you, something deeply spiritual that says, actually, we live on a goddess and she's really poorly, and it's about time we wake up to the fact that she is a goddess.
Yeah. Brilliant stuff. I love it. And you've sort of answered the next question as well, which is, how relevant do you think spiritualism is in the 21st century? And it is about that awakening and that realization that we're all connected to everything, and we have to respect that.
Me, you and Michael have had this conversation, I think indirectly via other parties, and other parties may watch this, about all lives matter. We've had this. We've had that argument, and I've had that argument yesterday with somebody. And it's kind of like, yes, they do, and we accept that. The point is, in the hoop of creation, everything matters, and it's not a pyramid. And some people who have been saying this, all lives matter, seem to think that it's a pyramid system, rather than a circular, and it's not. And I think spiritualism, the religion of spiritualism, has the fantastic ability to say we sit in a circle for a reason, and within that circle everybody is equal, whether you're gay, straight, black, white, whatever, whether you have learning disabilities or physical disabilities or able-bodied, young, old, or whatever. Inside the circle you are just simply a member of that circle. And I think that is what this century needs. I'm not a communist, I'm a socialist, but I do feel we need more of that. And that's what I think spiritualism offers, to say you are all equal. And I will say this, and I'll shut up on this question because I answered it. I went to a SNU church in Yorkshire to lead the open circle, and I didn't dress up, just wore normal clothes. And the secretary was like, "You're not dressed to take a service." I was like, "I'm not taking a service."
No, it's a circle.
It's a circle. I just happened to be the first speaker. And she was like, "Yeah, but, it's rude to spirit." I was like, it would be rude to the circle to dress up in any other way than in my normal clothes. And I stood up at the start of that circle and just said, like, for the next hour that we are in this union, we are all equal. Sunday might be divine service and I might be here in a suit and tie with a carnation in my pocket, but today I'm sat here in my jeans going, somebody talk to me nana for me.
Yeah. There you go. I agree with that. So what do you see as being the advantages and disadvantages of working as we've had to work over the last few months? online?
Ooh, oh, that's a dodgy question. Do you want to start with that question? Do you want to answer that question?
I can answer that question if you want, Jason. Yes, that's fine.
I mean, I've got an answer, but I'd like to hear yours first.
I think as we've had to develop and change the way we work, that we have had to adapt, and Spirit have adapted with us. And I find working online, like we did at Pastures Green the other night, has opened up the reach of mediums, because I've had people watching my services from Australia, America, Finland, Amsterdam. So it's been wonderful in that sense. But I still like standing in front of a congregation of living, breathing entities and having that human connection as well as the spiritual connection. So I think the swings and roundabouts with it, in that it's stretched me as a person. Tia, be quiet. And it's developed my link with Spirit and made me work differently to the way I've worked before. Sorry about that.
It's all right. Wait for mine to bark.
So yeah, that's my answer at the minute. And I think going forward, as humans, we will hopefully have learned from this experience, this lockdown experience, and learn that change is good. And it develops us as humans. Although I do know certain, is factions the right word, of spiritualism still want that rigidity, and that this is how it's done and this is how you communicate with Spirit. And like I said, this is how you dress to communicate with Spirit.
Yeah. And to pick up on that last part, I think that is something that we have to look. I mean, put it this way: it will not be looked at, but it is something we should look at. Which is to say that when the churches do reopen, and we get to stand in the rostrum, and some old dear gets to throw a bloomers at you again. It's I think a lot of churches should pay attention to the fact that it's the and I'm not saying this myself, but for yourself and others wider, it's the people who took online services and have served online that should we need to change.
Yeah.
And you've seen there are a lot of churches that have been like, can't wait to open, but because they haven't offered that online adaptability, I think they've stumped themselves. I really think some churches have stuffed themselves.
Yeah.
Because
looking around just where I live, there must be 6 or 7 churches within a 15-minute drive of where I live. And a lot of them were struggling to start with. And I know a lot of the people who went to those churches have watched my online services and other people's online services. And I think those churches will find it very, very difficult to pull those people back in. Yeah. And that's just how it is. And it's really sad. It is really sad in that sense.
It's a large, lovely movement of people, like you say, as well, like not only around the world, but even, people forget our island is a big island. It's not as big as some islands, but the chances to go do a circle down in Nottingham, and I did Pool Church the other week, which it's very unlikely I'm going to get to go to Dorset on a regular occasion. The trains are terrible. But that's been nice to be able to connect with people from all over of our own country and see how, because southern mediums were very different to northern mediums as well, which is very I hadn't expected.
It's been amazing. It's been amazing to serve so many different places, and being involved with Pastures Green Church in Bridlington, we've had mediums from all over the country doing our online services for us. And we're looking at ways of integrating the online side with the physical church when we get back. So having a laptop in church with a projector and using StreamYard and having mediums virtually demonstrate within the church, and vice versa. You can also have congregation watching as well, which is, it's blowing my mind thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, we've without blowing all of our own trumpets, although I will, like a choir of angels, I'll blow them. We have disproved the old myth of you must be sat together. When people ask for reading, they say, how does it work over video or over the phone? It's like, well, the same as it would anywhere else, obviously, because so long as the person is with me and wants to speak to you, happy days, it's all hunky-dory. And then they're like, oh, but I always thought you meant to be sat together. And it's like, well, that is an amazing idea that, if you had, Blackburn Church, for example, is a very modern church. It would be amazing to have a projected medium, because we've just proven that it doesn't affect the world of spirit, and spirit adapts to make its communication work. And that would be a fantastic idea.
It's just something that we were talking about, because we were sort of saying it would expand our congregation, because a lot of people can't get into church for one reason or another. And especially in the winter, a lot of the older congregation don't want to come out and walk home in the dark. So it just, like I said, it just blew our heads, and we just thought,
it's it's broke that sort of old nonsense about you have to be with the person. And we apologize to anyone who doesn't appreciate the word nonsense, but say it as you see it. That is what it is. And I think we've proven it is nonsense. It doesn't have any reflection. We've opened up, I think, as well, not only the church, our movement. Michael, for example, did a fantastic job when he introduced platform medium availability in giving new life. And anybody in the spiritualist movement who may query at Michael's politics cannot query what a great service he has done to the spiritualist movement this past year in allowing mediums to just flow around the country in a way they'd never done before. And this has obviously moved that even further, which is we've had to do it, and it's been nice to see it. But it's also made more people who didn't even know there was such a thing as a spiritualist religion to be like, they might have known what a psychic was, but
the difference between a psychic and a spiritual medium, two very different things.
And a working man's pub type of person. Yeah,
and it's brought it to light to a lot of people, like you said, because I've got people that have messaged me after I've done an online dem and said, oh my God, it's the first time I've ever watched anything like this, and it's just been amazing. You've blown my mind,
And younger. Because you can go to some churches, and I'm not painting myself a very polite picture here, but you can go to some churches and there is more life in a mortuary. Think, Jesus, most of you look like you don't go on holiday to Rill, you go on holiday to the local morgue. And this is about young people. And I mean that in the most, my sense of humor is not very funny, but there are so many young people really, really interested in spirit, and under the age bracket of 30, which is fantastic, because without those people, spiritualism does not have a very long lifespan.
No, it is going to die out with the congregation, isn't it? If we don't do something and reach out and doing something like this. And like I said, combining the technology and the church is a way of maybe bringing people into the movement and keeping it alive for a few more years.
Very much. And I think the final thing, just to let the last one.
No.
It's exposed the, and I shouldn't say this really. It has shown the variation of quality, and I think that's been massively important, because you can go And it was always my problem with spiritualism when I first moved into it. You could sometimes go and watch a medium and you just think, what's going on here? Who's this balmy bloke on that, wasn't it? And what's he talking about? And
well, just to pick up on that, just for a quick example, I went to a centre with Michael, and it turned out we were double booked with another medium. So Jean and I were there waiting to serve the church, and the president was saying, but you're not our medium for tonight, this other person is. And we said, oh, fair enough, we'll just sit and watch. So anyway, he was late. So Jean and I started the service, and then he bawls and tells Michael, and I mean, you know Michael, needs to stop growing and smoking the wacky backy and stop selling it. And Michael's, before he could respond, he said goodbye and moved on. And if I tell you, he started in the back left-hand corner of the church, worked along a row, came forward, worked back along the row, worked forward, back along the row, and that's how he went. And I thought, A, you're wrong. You've given no evidence of who's talking to you. B, Michael smoking and growing weed? Don't think so. He's the most conservative with a small c person, really.
Yeah.
And B, you can't work like that in a church. Well, I've never been able to work across the row and then across the next row. And it was just like, wow.
The two online ones I've watched, I mean, I watched a lady a few weeks ago, and obviously it was 75% no. And then there was something given, and basically she said that somebody was an alcoholic, and that this, but the name worked. She gave this name, and somebody took the name up, and she's like, they're a drunk, and they're going to need your help. And it was like, I don't think it's really appropriate if 75% of your message is no, that you then go and launch out something as serious as being an alcoholic. There was another person I watched a few weeks ago. It was the most awful thing. I turned it off after 15 minutes. The phone started pinging, and people were like, you should come and watch this. And I watched 10 minutes, and I was like, I feel sorry for this lady. You know, I don't know who has made this happen, but this shouldn't be happening. And I felt sorry for her. It looked, I mean, she didn't look like she noticed, which was the worst part. And I didn't have the heart to tell her, but it was just like, it's tosh this, and it's rude as well. And I mean, just to go back to before the churches were open, my local church has this lovely man, and he's a lovely man. But everybody knows Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And if you don't know them, they know you. And it's just bizarre. And I used to sit there with the pen and paper, writing down his catchphrases and tallying how many times he said them.
Oh, God.
And one day I got up in open circle, and he comes to me and he said, you've got a lovely connection, you. And I said, oh, thank you very much. I said, can I give you a message from Spirit? And he said, yeah, sure. And he said, what is it? I said, you know that bad left leg that you've been given for the last 15 services? I think you should go to the doctors and get that checked. Because every single service he does, he gets a bad left leg. And it's just, everybody has it. Everybody he gives a message to, he tries to give this bad left leg. And I was just like, oh, God. And
stop it.
And I think opening them up in this way has really helped, because first of all, people who have an interest are a little bit more critical than the standard, you know, every week go to a service crew who just go, it's what Spirit says. And it's like, that's fine, but you have to provide the evidence that Spirit is actually there in the first place to allow that argument to be used. And I think that's what it's done. I think there is a bit more of a pressure to say, like, you know, if you are saying you are doing what you are doing, then there is a requirement that you prove to us you are doing what you are doing by doing something that can't be done. And people who have just been getting away with it of just saying it. And I don't mean that they've been doing it deliberately. I must stress that it's not a deliberate thing. I think they've just been some people, unfortunately, make a series of generalizations that get accepted as evidence, and suddenly they're on the circuit doing services, feeding out these series of generalizations. And that's not a medium. That's, as Darren Brown says, that is it's something that everybody could take. And this time online has really sort of cleared that out. I think a lot of that where you just think that's nonsense. And you've done 30, 40 services and it's still nonsense.
Yeah, it is. I was always told by Jean, who mentored me and took me under her wing and like you said, tottering around services with her. Your job is to prove your connection with that person in spirit. So you have to prove who your first job is to prove who you're working with.
Yeah.
So give evidence of that person, personality, description. And until you do that, don't give a message.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because otherwise it's like you said, it could be given psychically or, but if you're saying you're a spiritual medium, prove you're connected to spirit.
I love that, because I totally agree with that too. I will work on evidence, give evidence. I always try to get to who the person is as quickly as I can do.
Yeah.
And then I always say, before I go into giving the message properly, do you accept what I have given you at this moment in time is proof of connection to the world of spirit beyond refutable doubt? Like, you accept that you know who it is I'm talking to, and you know that what I have done there is something. And if they and ah, then I will go and get more.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to tell you what they want to tell you until you say to me, that is definitely my man.
That's the thing. I've had it where somebody's launched into a message from spirit, and I've had to say to them, hang on a second, I can't give the message until you give me something about yourself, because I need to prove to that person that this is the connection. But anyway, we could go on about this one all day.
Yes, let's
there's a bit of a discussion going on in the comments actually about, would spirit know if you smoke weed? Yes, because they would see you smoking it while they're around you, so they would. But in a church service, I wouldn't give that to anybody. I wouldn't go to somebody and say, you've been smoking weed. I'll maybe say you've been dabbling in something you shouldn't, but I would never give that as a bit of evidence in a church.
I love that. Paul Smith just asked a question, and then I was, what Stacey Renshaw wrote, I think she possibly just picked up from my mind.
Yeah.
It was like, well, it's a very simple question. Answer that.
Yeah.
And some people, some people, with regards to Paul's question, like how would a medium make claims like that? I mean, you have to remember that some mediums, I don't know if you've ever seen them, Tony, but sometimes they push their own political agenda.
Yeah.
Or their social agenda on you. And you think, my job is not to tell you what I believe and what
Michael, myself, and our son went to a church, and we know the person that runs the church really well. And the medium stood up, and his first message was to me, and he was talking about my granddad standing behind me, wagging his finger and commenting on my lifestyle. And the next week, I was actually serving that church, and the lady took me and Michael into the back room and apologized profusely and said, that did not come from spirit. As you came in, I said, that must be Michael's son, Michael and Tony's son. And it said, how do you mean? And she said, well, Michael and Tony are married. And he said, what do you mean they're married? and that was what came through. And I said that's a reflection on him. But yes, he was very much commenting on something.
Yeah.
Perspective. My grandfather would never ever have. Well, he didn't, because he knew Michael and myself before he passed to spirit. Obviously, he knew me. It was my granddad. But there we are. But anyway, yeah.
My nana's told me the same. Me and my nana had that conversation. We had that conversation when I was 14. We had that conversation when I was 21. We had that conversation about when was I going to finally bring a boy for her to meet when she was 83. We had it. But I've had this, your grandmother, your nana, she is not happy with this. And it's like, this is nonsense. Because unless you suddenly changed your mind from the opposite side of life, which is really not allowed to do, you know.
Yeah, it's tosh. It's tosh, and it's their own, like you say, it's their own political, social agenda, and that's not good. But that's another huge conversation.
The very last thing I say on that, there was a lady in a circle who I attend occasionally. She obviously follows my Facebook, and she noticed that I have lots of objects, have lots of like crystal balls and stuff. And she gave me a message to me saying that my nan had told me to throw them all away. It was all nonsense. She couldn't understand why I wasn't being true to myself by collecting them. And I said, the only thing I query there with you is my nan started me collecting them. Like, she bought them for me. Most of the things that are in my house were bought by her for me because she said that I was interested in that stuff before I was even interested in it. So why would she tell me to throw it all away and that she thinks it's not true to me? And it was just because that lady didn't like it.
Yeah.
Because she had an opinion.
And I always say when I'm in a circle or anything, the first thing that comes into your head is spirit. The second thing is your interpretation of that.
Yeah.
And it's not our job to put an interpretation on anything, but there we are. So, question 11, what are you grateful for?
I am grateful. It's always a funny one, isn't it?
It is.
I am grateful for being here. Yeah. I am grateful for all the things that happened that brought me here. And I am grateful for being here. And it's a funny one. You can be grateful for so many things, and you can overcomplicate being grateful. But sometimes I think the simplest gratitude is just being grateful that you exist. Whether it's great at the moment or terrible at the moment, just be glad that you're here, because other people would happily swap their places with you.
Yeah.
You know,
it's actually the first thing I do every morning is to say a quick prayer and say thank you for allowing me to wake up.
Yeah, that's it. And you're into a good start just waking up.
Yeah. The rest of it's what you make of it. So,
have you had a good morning? Well, I got up. So yeah,
I woke up.
It's a start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's remembering to be grateful for the simple things.
Yeah, I mean, you get some people who sit there, don't you, and do mantras for hours and hours and hours. And I'm just grateful I'm here. I'm grateful for all the people I have been blessed to love in my life, and all the people I'm blessed to love now. And I'm grateful for all the people who I'm going to meet who I might not like very much and I might adore, you know, and who will change my life. But at the moment, I'm just grateful for being here. I'm grateful that somebody I love and care about is sat downstairs, albeit being I won't say what I was going to say. I don't need to explain what that was going to be, but albeit being a grouch this morning. Yeah. After that, I don't. Yeah. I wouldn't overcomplicate that.
No. And the last one is the one we talked about before.
Oprah.
From Oprah. What do you know for sure?
I know for sure. Yeah. I know for sure that so long as you have faith, not necessarily in God or anything like that, but just faith in faith, you can do anything and everything will be all right. And I know for sure that life is everlasting. I am certain of that. I have had proof beyond irrefutable doubt, and not from myself, but from other mediums and experience. I know life is everlasting, and I have faith in that. And I think faith is the most important word, and I don't mean it in a religious context. Just have faith that things happen because they must be so, and everything will work out fine. And other than that, the only other thing I know for certain is I don't know anything else for certain at all, and I'm certain on that.
Yeah. I like that. I'm certain that nothing's certain.
Yeah, I am. That's the only other, apart from faith, is the most important feeling that you can express in terms of getting yourself to the end of life from its beginning. The only other thing I'm certain of is nothing is certain.
Yeah. Well,
it's yeah.
Thank you for that hour and 20 minutes, Jason. That's been wonderful, really interesting.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for sharing that with us. I'm sure everybody who's watched and the people who aren't on anymore would like to thank you as well.
Thank you very much.
Would you like to end this with a prayer, please?
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, where should we start? Divine and infinite Spirit, I thank you for allowing us to gather here in the bond of friendship and in the circle of togetherness. I hope that these words will find their way to where they are needed. I ask that the sun may shine for us all this day, and we will find the joy of everlasting life. Amen.
Amen.
I wasn't expecting a closing prayer then. No, because it was just a chat. I told them they could have the morning off. So I was like,
well, that's fine.
My prayers are in my filofaxing spirit.
What I would say is anybody who hasn't got Jason as a Facebook friend, it's worth adding him, Jason Dean Rothwell. He does lots of videos, lots of demonstrations online, and lots of wonderful, wonderful philosophy. I love Jason's philosophy. I could listen to it all day. So thank you all for spending this time with us again, and I will talk to you all very, very soon.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, no problem at all. No problem at all. See you soon, Jason. God bless.
God bless. Bye.